Hello and welcome. Here is another video from the ToC Down-Under 2021 Summit. It all kicked off about 2 weeks ago now, and I am now really delighted to share with you the keynote from the second day. This one comes from Larsen from WiseTech Global. Ian leads a big team of software developers there. They're a company built on software development, doing rather well for themselves just at the moment. And Ian is going to talk to us today about the apparent conflict between quality and speed. And I'll give you a little hint. He reckons there is no conflict. Not if you manage it. So, good morning, everyone. Good evening, if you're in Europe, and everyone on YouTube. Good to see you. So here in front of you, you have Ian Larsen, and I'm trying to think of how to say flattering things about Ian that don't sound like I'm trying to suck up to him too much. But there's this fine level of sucking upness here that we've got to do where you can go too far. So I just say I find this topic here that Ian's going to talk about riveting. And when we were talking maybe 6 months ago, Ian said this thing to me that I thought, no, he's nuts. He said something along the lines of, pretty much every conflict is a conflict between speed and quality. And I thought, And then I went and actually looked in my own book, Rolling Rocks Downhill. There's probably a copy back there. And I realized that the first cloud I had in that book was actually speed and quality. And then I started thinking a bit more, and I was very reluctant to admit that he might be right. And then eventually I did, because I kept seeing the pattern over and over again. So I think this is really cool for all of us here. Ian's going to talk about the conflict between speed and quality, how it's not a choice between one or the other. And Ian, just for background, is the chief something or other. I'm not sure what your job title is anymore, Ian, at WiseTech Global.
It's on the slide.
Is it global software operations at WiseTech Global? And I always enjoy talking with you, Ian, because don't take this. There's a bit of wisdom coming in there that may just be a lot of age has got you to the point where you've got a lot of stuff here. Simplify things down, make it nice and easy to absorb. And I'm really looking forward to this. And I'm going to shut up now and hand it over to you.
I think I heard at the end there, Clarke, that I'm really old, and so I might know some stuff. I think that's what you were trying to say.
Something
but
like
yeah, that. Right. Yes, a few scars under the belt. Yeah, look, thanks very much, and it's a pleasure to be here. And hello to everybody who's online and who watches the recording. Speed and quality. The fundamental conflict in all human endeavor. I know many of you might have thought that it's actually the fight between good and evil, but I'm here to tell you it's actually something quite different. All right, it's speed and quality. And I'm just going to start off with a little bit of a definition from my perspective in terms of this kind of conversation. And really, in terms of a conflict between speed and quality, what the speed piece is, it's the pressure to deliver an outcome within some sort of reasonable time frame. And quality is the pressure to deliver an outcome that works as expected for the intended recipient of that outcome. And an outcome normally solves some sort of problem. And the pain or the risk of an unresolved problem is always reflected in the intensity of the pressures on the speed and the quality side, right? So some things that you're looking for, the pressures are very small. If I'm building a shed to keep my wood dry, basically I want it up fairly soon before the rain comes, and so long as it stands up in the rain and the weather, that's sufficient. If I'm building a nuclear power plant, that's probably a whole different situation. But what we see often is that people get into this conflict, and this conflict repeats itself again and again and again. People say, I want to focus on getting that outcome fast, and they look for ways that can be there faster, and they look for shortcuts. Often, because they're trying to go so fast, they miss critical steps, and therefore the pain or the risk is not fully mitigated. And so then they flip back or somebody causes them to flip back and look at, the job's not good enough. You need to do a much better job, deliver a better outcome. And then some of those outcomes are actually hard to build. They take a lot of time. You've got to understand and investigate. So it seems like it's taking forever and ever, and then the solution's far off into the future. And my pain is not getting resolved, right? And my risk is continuing to be there. So I push back and go, hey, I need this solved now. I really need you. And we're caught in this loop often, again and again and again. And it's been repeated through time. So if we just have a quick look at the next slide, many of us will have heard these sayings many, many times, I'm sure. Rome was not built in a day. I've actually just been building a shed with my son, so it's a fair bit of carpentry going on. And the measure twice, cut once, actually ended up being measure once, cut twice quite often, as we had to fix up all of our errors. But you'll see these kind of sayings have presented themselves over and over and over throughout time. And the reason they keep on presenting themselves is these are all answers to the speed quality conflict, right? And mostly what they're saying is slow down and do it right the first time. Because we have this, I guess, innate desire for speed. We want gratification quickly. We want our pain resolved. We want our risks mitigated. And so there is a natural tendency towards the speed. And a lot of these sayings are about, just slow down and get a good quality result. And as I've went around the world, I presented this idea, and it was very clear to me in different languages and different cultures, exactly the same conflict, the same kind of sayings are present in all those different cultures and languages. And I mean, you could think about all sorts of other sayings, and if you wanted to throw some into the chat that I haven't put on the screen that you might have come across, I'd be happy to add to my list of sayings. Right. So what actually happened is at a meeting we were having at WiseTech one day, and we were talking about the conflict between speed and quality, our CEO, Richard White, just threw this line out, said, well, the conflict between speed and quality, it's everywhere in a software business. In fact, it's endemic to all human endeavor. And I sort of took that and I went, a little bit like Clarke, right? I took that and I went, wow, that's actually quite profound. And again, I tested it again and again and again as I went around and spoke to many of our business operations around the world. Everywhere is the speed quality conflict is present all of the time, everywhere in the business. And I've even sat in a bar and talked to a chef in the US about building new menus for a new restaurant chain. And again, we see the speed quality conflict everywhere. And so I think this was quite profound and quite an insightful learning for me. And I've seen nothing since that proves this to be incorrect. Okay. And so how do we handle that? So one of the things that we do in WiseTech is we have these mantras that help us manage the speed quality conflict. And the first mantra is this idea of slower today, faster forever. And each of our mantras is a very easy way to remember the answer to the problem. And it's a socially legitimate way of course correcting somebody who wants to, perhaps emphasize the speed or absolutely overemphasize the quality. And it allows us to continue to reinforce in our culture that we want both speed and quality. And so on the screen there is the principle that we're trying to enforce. The conflict is the conflict between speed and quality. And our injection to that conflict is that quality is speed. And I'm going to talk in the next little bit about how that plays out across a number of the different mantras that we have in the business. Okay. So we have these 9 core mantras in the business. And you see the first one on the top left there is slower today, faster forever. And you know, that could be encapsulated in the Rome wasn't built in a day. The lead with content mantra is how we actually scale everything. If we think about when people want some information or they want to know how to do a certain thing, and in fact, many people in the organization want to know how to do a certain thing. And when they want to know that, they'll go and ask somebody, and they'll be verbally given the answer, or they'll be shown how to do it. What we tried to do is turn that into a piece of content that the person who needs the knowledge can just self-serve and consume themselves without having to distract the person with the knowledge. And when we do that, we can distribute this knowledge as many times as we like to as many people around the world if we get it into a written form. Also, that means that our answers to questions are completely consistent and of a reasonably high standard quality. And we can repeatedly deliver the same piece of content as many times as we like, which enables us to scale, right? And deliver a really good quality outcome at scale everywhere. And if I think about the Roman theme again, and we think about the Colosseum, when they built the Colosseum, what they did is they built all these templates, and they distributed identical templates to many different stonemasons so they could all build identical archways and then have those archways brought to the site of the Colosseum and have them installed, and they would know that they were all going to be consistently of the same quality, the same size, the same strength, and that the Colosseum would stand up. Okay, and this idea of templating and being able to repeat the same instruction again and again and again to a huge number of people really allows you to build scale into any kind of operation. And so really I guess the essence of that story is these concepts have been around for a very long time, right? And they do the same thing, right? If I think about the last one on the bottom left there about anyone can talk to any time for any reason, this is really about open lines of communication and allowing information to freely flow as fast as possible around the organization without having to go up and down hierarchies in particular. Because when it goes up and down hierarchies, or when it goes through too many hands, the information tends to get filtered, right? And the more steps that it goes through, the more filtering that occurs, and you lose the essence of the original information. So we really like these open lines of communications. And if you stick with the Roman theme again, of course, you've got the Roman roads. And what did the Roman roads enable the Romans to do? It enabled them to control a vast empire spread over many hundreds of miles, perhaps even thousands of miles across the European continent. And those roads gave them high-speed communication lines of the day, right? And allowed information to flow very quickly from the outer parts of the empire and from the back into Rome and back again. And it gave them a tremendous advantage in managing their empire. So again, these kind of concepts are not new. Perhaps we've just reimagined them in a modern sense. The last thing I'd like to say here is that none of those mantras are specific to software development. We're a software development company, for sure, but there's not one piece of software development language or applicability in any of those mantras. What they are very applicable to is any kind of creative endeavor. right? And I would say most organizations are or have an element of creative endeavor in them. And you know, these mantras, they're all publicly available on our website. Anyone can go and read them and look at them and say, hey, maybe that's something that we could use in our organization, right? So feel free. Cool. Skipping to the next slide, and this one is about software development. Although all of these elements here could be taken and repurposed into any other kind of business. And in fact, the first one there, chunking, is something that you see a lot of in the ToC world around small batch sizes. So what happens here is when we have smaller items of work flowing through our business, they're quicker and easier to design, to build, and to test. And both the speed and the quality of our software development operations go up. And this is no different to a manufacturing operation using small batch sizes. Halve your batch and halve it again, right? And the speed and the quality go up. Your work and process goes down, right? It's exactly what happens. Our test first is about actually saying, before we start writing our software, let's define the conditions it must meet. Now, you can do that for anything that's not software as well. You can have a done statement that says, this is what done looks like, and then you can execute and you can see whether you've passed the test of done being met. Okay, so test first, it's really that contract that we're writing at the start of the process with ourselves to say, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the condition I'm trying to meet. And if that test passes at the end of this activity, then I've completed it. And this does a couple of things. For us in the software development world, what typically people do is they write some code and then they write the test, right? And they fit the test around the code that they've written, right? So one of the things that happens is they continue writing code until they think they're finished, and then they try and figure out what the tests are that proves that what they wrote was good. What we like to do is we like to write the test first, okay? And then we stop writing code once the test is passed. And that means we don't go on writing our code forever, right? So it's a quite nice way of actually stopping people going on and gold plating the product forever and ever. We stop writing when we meet the test. The third one, defect first, is actually about the moment we detect a quality issue, we fix it. And so our backlog of defects is always very, very low, okay? And we try to make sure that we keep that down, because once defects get away on you and you've got too many things to be fixed, it becomes a huge backlog that never gets addressed. It impacts customer service and it impacts the reputation and the overall quality of your operation. So that is something that we address very, very quickly. And one of the things you have to make sure is that your fix rate exceeds your create rate, and that's the easy way of making sure that you always deal with that. But that's true in any kind of endeavor as well. You know, if you have a whole bunch of defects in your building or something like that, it can take forever and ever and ever. The tenants and the homeowners are annoyed, and you know, it creates all sorts of problems. We have a saying in the business that anytime we have a failure or a defect, it's a failure of containment. And we use the word containment to say, we're going to put a containment barrier here, and that's going to stop poor quality passing this point. So it's like a review point, it's like a quality checkpoint, but we consistently use the word containment. And we apply containment in all parts of our operation, not just our software development. We have containment in our sales processes. We have containment in our marketing processes. We have containment in our commercial finance processes and on and on and on. We just have these checkpoints where we check in and make sure that the quality is right, that we're on the right course, that we think we're going to solve the problem that we're trying to solve, right? Okay. And then the last one is finish what you start, right? Keep your work in process down. Try and avoid the multitasking and the interruptions that really upset the productivity and the flow of the business. And what you can see here is all of these things here have a quality and a speed element to them. And again and again and again, what we actually do is we go for quality first and speed tends to follow, right? It's like practicing anything, perhaps you're trying to, hit a tennis ball over the net. First of all, you're not going to be going fast and being accurate. You're going to have to go slow, right? And once you know that you can hit the ball over the net successfully and land it in the right place, then you can work on speed. And this was interesting to me one day when I was talking to the board, and I was saying, we've been doing speed, quality for years. And the CEO, Richard, he interrupted me and said, no, we haven't. We've been doing quality, then speed, quality, then speed, quality, then speed. So we actually improve the quality first and the speed second is typically what happens in our business. Alrighty, moving on. Last point that I want to make, and it's really at the heart of any conflict, any important conflict, there's a breakthrough waiting to happen. And at the heart of the speed quality conflict is the answer that quality is speed, right? And it's a lesson that we've learned, and it's a lesson we continue to learn. And one of the reasons that all of those sayings continue to be used is because we're not actually applying this injection in our daily lives everywhere. We're typically going for speed, and the actual answer is, in any sort of medium and long-term endeavor, quality is speed. And that's the solution to all conflict in all human endeavor. There you go. So Clarke, we can open the channel for questions if you would like.
Lovely job. Can I just point out a couple of things here that come through in the comments here? One from Vicky Mabin. This is so clever and applies so much more broadly than software. And I've been having the same thoughts. I think this is it's just so true, and yet someone actually needs to say it, and it feels like a gap for me that's been in the ToC language, the ToC world, is that we've kind of we've not melded this bit with quality, except sort of on the periphery. The other one I had is I noticed Vicky also put in a comment there, another mantra, another saying, which is I can't remember what it is. It's make haste, more haste, less speed. There's this idea, yeah. So this is just recurring thing, right? Okay. Now I just want to go here, and Carl, you had you had some comments there. Do you want to come in and just?
Yeah, well, I had a big aha moment. I mean, I've been watching you guys at WiseTech for quite a while, and this quality is speed. I've been watching it, but I'd never made this connection between speed and security. So if you wanted the human version of quality and speed, quality is satisfaction and speed is security. And I talked about that yesterday, the security satisfaction. Now we're getting really close to IFRAT's cloud and growth of a human being, let alone the growth of a company. So that was my massive aha moment. And I've just been kind of reframing what you've been talking about. And then the real gold, which is what I actually presented yesterday as well, is satisfaction is security. So if you give up, if you stop security, if you be vulnerable and you find your hidden commitments and you focus on satisfaction, that's how my clients are having personal breakthroughs all the time. And now I totally get why, at this whole holistic level, why it works, it's working at WiseTech. And I bet that that is having a massive impact on the human beings inside the organization for just that reason. It's the same conflict. So yeah, awesome. That was a big aha moment for me. So thank you. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I showed up for this.
Yeah, look, I think, you know, I certainly had some issues about 15 years ago, and I had to do a whole lot of personal development on myself. And actually, by improving myself, I was actually able to do so many more things faster and better when I was, you know, with all the weight of the world on my shoulders and all the issues that I had. Everything was rubbish and slow. And you know, relieving myself of all those burdens of prejudices and things like that really helped me deliver a better quality result at speed. And here I am today. I think that's right. Look, a lot of people in the organization, it's not like we don't have delivery pressure. We do have delivery pressure. We want to deliver and get our products to our customers, but we recognize that every time you take the delivery pressure and put it on the development teams, we almost always cause them to cut corners, and every time we cut corners, we pay a price. Yeah. Right. And that sometimes that comes back and bites us quite quickly, and sometimes it comes back and bites us 5-10 years down the track, where we have to actually pull the whole thing apart and re-architect and rebuild a product. Yeah, this quality first kind of thing. We want quality and speed, but if you need to choose quality, and we'll come back and get the speed later.
Yeah. I love the end, the way you phrased it is quality then speed, quality then speed, quality then speed. And it's
that results in quality and speed.
And speed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. And therefore quality is speed.
Yeah. I think that's so can I pull back to something that you actually, no, Mariana talked about it yesterday, was no project managers, no due dates.
Right.
And the temptation to cut corners. Can you talk a little bit about the cutting corners and the pressure of having a date to deliver to?
Okay. So I think I might have talked about this on one of the previous seminars, and I was going to add it into this one, but I thought it might take too long, but I'll throw it up anyway. We think about the 4 inputs to most human endeavor, but certainly software development. There's a scope element, what you want to build and create. There's a quality element, how you're going to build it. There's a time frame element, when are you going to build it, and there's a budget element, right? Those are the 4 inputs to the endeavor. And because software development is a creative endeavor, the output is always uncertain. Okay, you just don't know how much time and energy and effort and exactly what it's going to look like. But like an artist painting, right? They don't kind of know what they're going to end up with when they're doing it for the first time. And with software development, if we'd written the software before, we'd use what we'd written before. So we're always writing new stuff. So we're always creating. Okay, so if the output of a formula is an uncertain number, it's variable, then the inputs, at least one of them must also be a variable. If you have 4 inputs to a formula that are constants, fixed, then the output is fixed. And we know the output's not fixed. So we know one of them mathematically must be variable, right? So then it's a choice of which 1 or 2 or 3 will be variable. And the way we look at it is that scope is we try to build the biggest, broadest, most impactful scope, and we don't want to compromise the scope. Now, we might chop it and chunk it into bits, but the scope is large and it's essentially fixed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we have a conversation about quality and how much do we want to compromise our quality? And the answer is always no. So the quality element is fixed. The budget for us in software development is essentially how many people you can apply to a particular job. And while we are growing our software development all of the time, and we're adding people all of the time, in any sort of short-term time frame, like anything less than a year, the team size is essentially fixed. And if you add a lot of people to a team, you actually slow them down, you don't speed them up, right? Initially. So while we are constantly growing our resources, in the short to medium term, it's relatively fixed. So that one's fixed. And so that leaves time. So if the other three are fixed, then time must be the variable input, right? And the moment you start fixing time, something happens. And I'll open up to the floor. What do you think happens? Myrta or Carl or Graham? What do you think happens when you fix time? Go, Carl.
It creates a pressure to actually revert to a whole bunch of security-based behaviors, and people will either avoid or they will start using opposition or power, or yeah, they'll just be flip-flopping between being passive or aggressive as soon as you bring in the time component. And if you add money to that, then it really starts to change. Time and money, those are the two things that really start upsetting everything. That's what I think anyway.
Cool. That sounds to me like the psychology point of view. I'm thinking that as soon as you give people a time frame, they're going to start cutting back on either quality or scope, or I suppose the third thing, they want to go and hire more people and blow the cost. So one of those other variables has to go.
Right. Which one goes first, Myrta?
Quality.
Of course.
Yep. And Vicky's added there, corners get cut.
Yep. The first thing that happens, because it's the hardest thing to measure and control, is quality. Quality breaks first, right? And then the person in charge of the quality says, you know what? I can't deliver all of this scope at the quality we want, right? I'm either going to have to reduce the quality, but I don't want to do that. So actually, I want to reduce the scope. So then it goes from the quality piece to the scope piece. And then the consumer of the outcome, the customer, says, what? I'm not going to get my outcome. I'm not going to get the full scope. And they complain, right? And they complain to the boss who's in charge. And they insist that more resources get added to the project, right, to deliver it. So like you said, Graham, right? And then, like anybody who's done projects, you add a whole lot of people, that actually slows things down, and you end up missing the time frame anyway. So what the due date does, the due date pressure compromises quality, reduces scope, blows the budget, and you don't get the thing delivered on time anyway.
There's another aspect to it, which is the stuff that from critical chain, which is that people bloat out their estimates, and then that actually has a knock-on effect in quality a few further steps down, because they end up building bigger products than they need to. They end up multitasking and diluting their effort, and then causing themselves to run out of time and then cut quality. Yeah, I think this is really. So I just wanted to add in here one of the things.
Let me finish answering your question about what Mariana was talking about.
Yes,
so
please.
we want projects managed. We don't want project management as such. And the qualifying statement there is we don't want traditional project management, because what traditional project management does, the first thing they do is they put a due date on the work.
Yep.
Right. And they put a due date on every piece of work. And as you say there, then people start blowing out their estimates, right? And padding all their estimates, right? And then they start working to the due dates. And because it's variable work, we don't hit the due dates. The swings and roundabouts, well, you only get the swings that hit you in the face. You don't get the roundabouts that take you to the fun place, right?
Yeah, I like
and you know, it's just a shit show, right? So
cool.
we want things managed, but we don't want the project management, because traditional project management overemphasizes due date performance, and we know what due date pressure does to quality, scope, and budget and time.
Yep.
Okay.
Would you mind talking a little bit of something that you've mentioned before? And Mariana mentioned it yesterday in her chat, and I think it's related to this about the customer not always being right. I think that's got the speed and quality angle too on the product that you deliver.
It's not that the customers are not right. What customers mostly express to you is what they want, not what they need. So if you think about the evaporating cloud, right? What do most people do? They express the thing they want, not the thing they need. And I would suggest that many customers who are trying to buy software or procure some software, they are inexperienced at doing that, right? How often do you go and buy a new enterprise software package? The answer is not very often. So they're inexperienced at that. And what they typically want is they want the same system and processes that they had before, it just in a more modern product, right? And they haven't done a deep dive analysis on what their core problems are and how they should be resolved, because they haven't done something like a whole CRT, discovered core conflicts, and built an FRT. So they haven't done that sort of thing. What we see is multiple requests from hundreds of customers, and from that we can extract trends, and we can actually build the CRTs around what is the industry core problem here that they're trying to solve. And then we take that input from customers, we do that problem analysis, you know, we've built many CRTs around our customer industry and really identified the core problem that they're trying to solve. And largely in the logistics industry, it's around productivity and the accuracy of information. Those are the problems that they're trying to solve, right?
So that's again the quality versus speed. Though you guys slow down today and think. You slow down and think so that you can actually give them better solutions rather than just feeding them what's making them hungry at the moment.
Yeah, we don't build custom software for individual customers. We build for the industry.
Yeah.
Right. And we will take customer input on what they want, and we'll think more deeply about what the deeper need is and what the real problem is, and actually deliver that function.
Yeah. So you guys slow down so that everyone else can go faster.
Sure. So again, it's not about the customer not being right. It's just that they come with their wants, not their real needs, because they often don't know how to express their real needs.
That's really, really cool. I love that approach. Can I just, I've got a question here come through from Seraphim, who is in Arizona. Either that or he likes the alphabet and just put A to Z there. Seraphim says, I love the approach you were describing, but I wonder how you handle this. It seems to me that the main reason people demand due dates is to align and synchronize multiple efforts. How do you align and synchronize multiple efforts when you cannot commit to a due date?
So there's a couple of things. So I have this situation in my specific team where we are wanting to implement particular injections in our teams around the world. So what we do is we don't commit to a due date until very late in the piece. And actually, if I take a leaf out of the critical chain book, what we do is we continually commit to a lead time, right? So we'll deliver this course to you 2 weeks after you're ready, for example. So people keep on asking us, oh, when can I install this thing? And we say 2 weeks after you hit this condition, right? So we give them a lead time, and then in that last little time, we commit to a date. In terms of delivering our software to our customers, we typically will give them some information about when we expect to deliver it. You know, maybe this quarter or the next quarter, right? But we haven't signed a piece of paper and written a contract that says we will do it by that date, right? So we aren't committing to the date, and our customers can't use our software until it's released in production, right? And the way in which our software is released, it's released through several stages. So we do a brand new release of our software every single day. We use that internally. We have once a week, we have a small number of customers that take our software every week, and they get a new version every week. And these guys are our development partners. Then there's some more, so it's about 5% of our customers. And then there's some other customers that take the next release about every month, and then as a general release about every quarter, right? So, you know, customers have got plenty of lead time as to when a piece of software is actually going to land in their particular upgrade. So yeah, that's easy to manage.
Actually, that's nice at that level. It's nice and controllable. What happened to something? Do you ever have emergencies?
Oh yes, we do.
Yep. What would you do in an emergency? Yep. Do you have like emergency feature requests, say, or?
We would have an emergency fix. So we've produced a piece of software and it's got a defect in it, and it's an emergency fix and it needs to be fixed right now. And we occasionally have those, and we have processes to roll those out to everyone in the world.
So that's really
a bit like a Microsoft patch. Yep, it's a bit like a Microsoft patch, and we can patch all the way back through every single customer in within a very short period of time.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, that's really cool. Are there any other questions coming? Pop them in the thing here. So Jim Heffern's just joined from Dublin. Must be about 1 o'clock in the morning there. Seraphim says, good answer, thank you. There's one thing that that stood out for me there, that because I love the gist of this. I think I wish more people knew this stuff and could articulate it so clearly. But one of the things that stood out, I've never heard before, that the Roman roads, how they not only facilitated the faster transport, but faster information movement.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yep.
That was a real insight.
Yep.
I've never.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, a little light bulb went on.
Fast lines of communication are critical for that sort of thing.
Yep. Okay. Hey, we've got about 3 minutes there, and I'm just wondering, could we finish with the last one here from Vicky, who's asked, have you changed anything due to COVID? Are they? And I'll leave that open. What's happened since COVID?
Well, we were very fortunate, and if you look at things like our mantras, like our lead with content, well, one, we're a technology firm, so most of our people were very comfortable working remotely. So we were able to go from everyone in the office to everyone working remotely in about 4 days. So that was easy. But the way in which we sold our product, for example, we didn't change. We always used pre-prepared videos of our software to demonstrate our software to our customers, right? And we just put them in a little sequence, they're little bite-sized bits, 5 minutes of this, 4 minutes of that, 3 minutes of that, and we package those together, and that's how we demonstrate software to a customer.
Yes.
So the only difference is we didn't go to the office and play the video. We just joined Teams or Zoom or whatever and played the video. So actually we changed very little as a result of COVID around our standard operating methods, right? You're on mute, Clarke. Somehow. Your sound is gone.
Oh, Graham, say something.
Oh, you're back again now.
Sorry,
right.
my internet suddenly had that blip there. Sorry. Lead with content. That was because you had the video, you had content prepared.
Yes, correct. And because we use content so extensively around the organization, that's a very easy way. We have a very, very sophisticated workflow system that actually uses drum buffer rope, and that's how we organize all of our work. So everybody has a visual board, they can see all the bits of work that they have to do, they can see all the work that everyone else is doing, they can see what's coming up in their queue, and that's how they operated anyway. So we were able to manage all of our work with our workflow system unchanged because of COVID. I think the real impact of COVID, like many other people, is people miss the social interaction. So we have to be more proactive about connecting with people through some sort of remote technology like Zoom or Teams or whatever. That's probably the main thing we've had to do differently, is be proactive about connecting with your fellow colleagues.
Yeah, right. I've got one question here, and I'm not sure quite how to word it. It's not an awkward one. So WiseTech's been very successful, and we've got a few people here, like James, who's been a big part of that as our closing keynote. Justin was with you in the early days. He was our opening keynote. We've had Mariana. Now, we haven't had Richard here, but I'm wondering how much of the success, there's a whole lot of things, obviously, but how much is ToC? How much is this quality versus speed? Because this feels really, really important. And how much is just having a leader that thinks differently and more ambitiously than anyone else? And how much is Ian, of course?
Yeah, look, it's all of those things. I mean, Richard is a real problem solver. At heart, he likes solving problems. He's an engineer, and he's got an engineering mindset. And so he looks deeply into what core problems are. So when ToC came along and he first found ToC, that was an absolutely natural fit to someone that likes solving core problems. Okay.
Yep.
He's also spent a lot of time studying human behavior and understanding how people operate. And he's done a brilliant job of surrounding himself with fantastic people, right? And so he's got the right people on the bus again and again and again to help go on the journey. And he's incredibly hardworking, right? He works hard, and he loves what he's doing, and he feels that he's on a real mission to change the world. So it's very purposeful what he's doing. And I think all of those ingredients are important.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. How about we kind of wrap it up then? I'm just going to say thank you very much. I just think that's a fantastic insight. I'm so glad that you shared it. Quality is speed. It's not a competition between the two of them. Really, really well articulated, and just a lovely example. And I just think that for the world going forward, WiseTech and your mantras and how you work, it's kind of like a role model for an awful lot of other organizations around the world. And so thank you very much, Ian. That was really kind of you to share that.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Cool.